The Umpire Inspire podcast is all about the stories, all about the journeys, and all about the heart of being an umpire. I'm your host, Jason Becker. Hi everybody, Jason here. Thank you for tuning in today. The response to the podcast has been phenomenal so far, and I really want to thank you for that. It has been especially gratifying to me. It makes me so happy to hear that the show has been an encouragement to you guys in this time, this strange and scary time where none of us are on the ball fields where we would like to be. If the Umpire Inspire podcast can help keep us encouraged a little bit, help keep us positive, help keep us motivated to be ready to go on day one, whenever day one is, nothing would make me happier. So thank you again. This podcast that you're listening to right now is available on all the major platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and others. So subscribe where you listen to podcasts and you will not miss an episode. Do check us out on Facebook, and of course, anytime, email me at jason@umpireinspire.com. I would really like to hear what you think, if you have any suggestions for the show, or what you'd like to hear in future episodes. David Saball is an accomplished umpire from Arizona. In 2019, he was awarded Most Outstanding Umpire at a Wendelstedt clinic he attended. In 2018 and 2019, he worked Major League Spring Training games in Arizona. And he's recently been offered positions in both collegiate and independent pro leagues. And did I mention, he's 17 years old. If you have youth umpires in your league or association, you are absolutely going to want to share this interview with them. Not many teenagers will find themselves calling a Major League Spring Training game like David has, but I think young umpires will really be encouraged to listen to one of their own peers describe his journey and his passion for umpiring. I myself am not a young umpire, but David's enthusiasm and his bright future sure gets me excited. Be sure to listen at the back end of the show because I'll bring you up to speed on David's next steps and where he expects to be heading this summer. I had so much fun visiting with David. You're going to love this kid. Please enjoy my visit with David Saball. David, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Excited to be here.
Thanks, buddy. I'm really happy to have you, and you've got a great story. I'm very excited for this episode because you've got some interesting tales to tell our listeners. I am quite certain.
Yes, sir.
David, tell me, give me a couple minutes right now on just who you are, where you're at right now. Let's start there.
All right. Well, I'm David Saball. Moved out to Arizona, where I am right now, up in Anthem, Arizona. Moved out here in 2011. At the age of, was right about 9 at that time. I've always been around the game of baseball. It just kind of ran in my family. So I knew I always wanted to do something with that. When I moved out here, I thought it would be as, a player like most people. I always thought, okay, I want to go play professional baseball, and so came out here, started playing. I mean, I thought I was pretty decent, but everyone thinks that, I believe. I got into umpiring out here around 2016, and I can get more into that in just a second as we go along. And I've been umpiring since pretty much my freshman year of high school. I'm a senior right now. I'm 17 years old. And like you've said, I've got some decent games under my belt.
You do indeed. So back up now. So you came out looking to be a ball player. So what happened there? Was it just not going to happen? The competition was a little different than you thought when you were coming up through middle school, high school, or? Well,
so when I moved out here, there was definitely an increase in competition. I came from right around Worcester, Massachusetts. Baseball, you can't play year round in the Northeast. It's just not going to happen. So you couldn't train as much, you couldn't play as much, you couldn't practice as much. It was simple as that. Out here, they were playing constantly. We play year-round out here in Arizona. So that was definitely a big adversity as I came out here to Arizona. I wasn't as good as I thought I was when I moved out here. The talent was just a lot better than me. So I was still trying to figure out what to do when my dad came across this ad. It was an ad for a Little League umpire clinic put on by one of the guys here in the Valley. And so I was like, you know what? It could be fun. The worst thing that comes from this is, just 2 days watching some baseball and having some fun on a field. I figured, it might not go any further than that. I might work some Little League games. Okay, could be fun. So I go out there, and I had no gear. I was in sports shorts, and, I had to borrow all of the plate gear from all of the other guys there. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I got out onto the field, though, and found out what umpiring was about out there, I was having a blast. I mean, it was the most fun I'd had even before I was, done playing.
There's just it was just immediate connection there, huh?
It really was. I mean, it just felt right, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
I felt like I was supposed to be out there. It was fun. And so after that 2-day clinic, I started going to work for the local Little League here in town. It's High Desert Little League. I worked probably a solid 10 games there before being invited to work USSSA travel baseball. And so there was a meeting at the end of every season for USSSA at the time where they would have the officials come out to a dinner. Everyone could meet and, say hi. So I went thinking it would be, just a good opportunity to get my name out there, meet some of the guys I'd worked with. While I was out there, I met my mentor and still one of my best friends to this day, Drew Vertez. He took me under his wing and he taught me everything he knew about umpiring. I was out there probably, 4 or 5 days a week with him, just taking notes on my little notepad, jotting down every word he said. It was gospel for me. And he worked spring training games on the backfields. He was a minor league, spring training guy. And so I would go out, watch his games, just take notes, see how he would set up, see his positioning. And I always remembered, I want to mimic his plate stance. I love it. I mean, perfect head height all the time. He just looked like, he had a good zone. Like He did. He had a perfect zone almost every single time I saw him. I mean, he was a phenomenal umpire.
That's awesome.
And the one thing that I really like taking away from him is how he handles himself off the field with the players as well as on the field. He just has such a good relationship with everyone. And he's really been an inspiration to me out there.
Do you happen to remember some of the very first things that Drew told you? Like, why in the world is this guy taking an interest in you and taking you under his wing like he did? And there was obviously talent to be seen there, but do you remember some of the specific things that he told you? Like, hey man, you got to come pursue this thing, and here's why.
On the field, every single game he's critiquing me, and I love it. That's what we live for. We need critiquing. We're not going to be perfect.
Absolutely.
And off the field, he teaches me how to be a good umpire, like small stuff that makes a big difference. Like always jot down notes when someone's, giving you good information. Make sure you're attentive. Just, be a good person off the field as you want to be on the field. We all want to be perfect on the field. So, take that off the field with you. That's his big thing that he gets across.
Wow. How fortunate to run into a guy like that.
Oh, it was right off the bat too. Some people don't make that connection in their entire careers, and I got it immediately.
That's awesome.
And so I went to work for USSSA that year, still learning from him. He was at almost every single game that I was working, just giving me feedback, letting me know what I could do better. And that really structured the umpire that I am now. So I'm very grateful for him.
That is so great. And man, you just stumbled into a gold mine. And how about that? That is so cool. So cool. And Drew, wherever you are, man, and maybe you're listening to this podcast right now. Thank you. Cause, that's pretty awesome. That's inspirational for me, as a 47-year-old, umpire and sometimes trainer. And, as often as possible, encourager of umpires. That's super inspirational for somebody like me. I love that. So you made your way through that first meeting and that first kind of year of umpiring, and you realized that, man, this is really fun. And what were some of the things about working games that were appealing to a 14-year-old, 15-year-old guy? Was there a specific moment where you decided, okay, I know I'm young, but it's go time. We're going to go for this, and we're going to pursue this as far as it'll take me. Can you remember?
So actually, my first game working Little League, I was out there and I was just having a blast. It was more fun than playing by far. And I was like, I want to do this. for a living, this would be great. I wasn't thinking professionally at that time. That came a bit later once I, met Drew. And I mean, it's amazing to see the transformation, because I remember my first game, I couldn't even get a uniform right. I mean, my belt was crooked. My shirt, looked crappily tucked.
Right.
My pants weren't hemmed well. I looked like a mess the first day. And appearances and everything, you got to know the rules, obviously. You got to know the game. But just looking back on it now, I have pictures from spring training games that I've worked, which I'll get into. And it's just amazing to see the difference. I see the difference not only in my actual physical appearance, but I can see a difference in the confidence level. Like I'll look into my eyes on those pictures and I'm like,
for sure.
It's night and day.
There are 1,000 umpires out there who have those same pictures that you do, that they look back on. And I'm one of them. I want to tell you, I've got a picture. I've got a picture of myself back. This was probably 8 or 9 years ago when I first started getting involved with umpiring Little League. And I bring it to all of the clinics that I teach, because in this picture, I can count 11 things that I'm doing wrong. I'm behind the plate, right? And I've got my hat on backwards. I'm kneeling down on one knee. I'm like 4.5 feet behind the catcher. There's just like this long list of things, and it's pretty comical. Well, it's comical for me, but it's super encouraging for newer umpires.
It really can be.
Yeah.
But yeah, like having people take pictures for you just so you can see, where you are, what you can work on. Because sometimes you don't realize in the game, what you're doing wrong. It takes, going back, looking through videos, looking through pictures to really break down your mechanics and see what you could do better.
Yes. So let me ask you, I'm curious to hear some more details about some of the unique umpiring experiences you've had. You have hinted that you got involved with some spring training and introduced us to some guys, and were granted some pretty awesome opportunities at an exceedingly young age, my friend, an exceedingly young age.
Maybe too young, yeah.
Oh, well, depends on who you ask. I'm curious to hear about that. But tell me about that first spring training opportunity you had. I'm thinking about when you told me back when you worked the Indians inter-squad game. And man, what was that like? What were you, 16 at that time?
I was 15 at the time. I couldn't even drive.
You're 15 years old, and you're
15.
working a Cleveland Indians spring training game.
Oh, man, I was floating on air that day.
Yeah.
That was the best experience of my life to this day, that first spring training game.
I can imagine. So how did that come about? How were you invited to work that game, and what was your reaction when you learned that was going to be a possibility for you?
Well, it goes back to Drew Vertes. He's been my mentor. I was following him around, watching him work his spring training games. He knew he could trust me. So I get a call. I think it was 2 days before I actually went out to work that game. I had just finished probably, I think it was 6 or 7 games of youth baseball that day. So I get in the car. I am exhausted. I'm beat tired. And my dad tells me to give Drew a call. I'm like, okay, that seems a little strange.
Just to put a point on it, you get into your dad's car.
My dad's car, yes. No, I'm not driving anywhere on my own at this
point. Just wanted to make that clear once more.
Yep.
Okay. So you get in your dad's car.
I get in my dad's car. He tells me to, give Drew a call. So I'm like, okay, seems a little strange. I give him a call.
Did your dad have a heads up on this?
He did, yeah. Okay. I didn't know until after, but he sure did. And so I give Drew a call. I'm like, hey, what's up, Drew? He's like, oh, nothing. You got school Monday? I'm like, yeah. I have, there's no holidays coming up this week. I got school Monday. He's like, call in sick. You'll be rocking black on the bases with me out at the Indians facility.
Yeah.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, no, you're out there. You'll be working with me. So, I was ecstatic at that point. I just lit up. I was completely drained of all energy, but that just relit the flame right there. I was, going crazy.
All right. So what was the weekend like for you then?
That weekend, I still had 5 games the next day on Sunday. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, only 4 more games until my next game is spring training. Only 3 more games till my next game is spring training. Just going through that the entire day, just having a blast. the entire day I had a smile on my face, and nothing changed when Monday came and I was driving down to the Goodyear facility. And so we pull up to the facility, and there's a staff parking lot for umpires and, players, coaches, the whole bit. And there's a security guard, at the gate. So we drive up. I roll down the window. I'm like, hey, David Saball, I'm one of the umpires for today. No problem. I go through. My dad parks the car. I bring my gear into the locker room, and I'm the first one there. Drew comes in probably about 5-10 minutes later. And he looks at me. He's like, hey, your dad drive you? I'm like, yeah. Is that a problem at all? He's like, no. It's just the security guard, asked me a question when I pulled up to the gate. He's like, hey, who's that first guy that showed up? He must be important. He has a driver. And I'm just sitting there like, oh, my God. I'm like, oh, geez, nope.
Dad's the driver.
Not quite.
Please tell me that you remind your dad of that at every opportunity you get.
Oh, absolutely. I bring that up all the time. It's still one of the funniest things that's happened.
Hey, Dad, I need a driver.
Just going to a game.
Yeah. So you get it on the field, and how'd the game go for you? What's your memory of that first inning out on the field?
Well, actually, probably the best memory was walking down to the field to start the game. So umpire room is, it's a nice little 2-3 minute walk to the fields.
Okay.
So we start walking down that way. We got to go through the staff only, entrance to the fields. And I see my dad, and he looks even more nervous than I felt. Like, his jaw was just on the ground. He was shaking. It was the funniest thing.
That's great.
And so we walk onto the field. I'm nervous as can be. We go straight to the plate. There's no plate meeting for these games. It was an inter-squad game for the Indians. Uh-huh. So they know, they're just going to go as long as they want, and it'll be, whatever rules they want to play, they'll play.
Yeah.
And so I get out there, and Drew looks at me. He's like, nervous, kid? I'm like, a little. Just trying to act like I'm not.
Liar.
Yeah, a little bit. And so I'm like, a little. He's like, you'll be fine. It's not going to be a problem. I've seen you work. You'll nail this. So I'm like, okay. He's like, just come down to talk to me in between, every 2 or 3 innings. That way I can give you some pointers. All right, will do. So I go off to first base. I watch a few ground balls thrown from the first baseman around the diamond. And I'm just trying to get a feel for this. I'm like, okay, big field, big players. I'm scared. And
I'd probably be thinking the exact same thing, buddy.
Oh, man. I was so nervous until after the first play. The first play was the worst for me. It was nerve-wracking. It was a ground ball to the second baseman.
Please don't be a banger. Please don't be a banger.
I was saying that to myself. It was the closest one I've had to this day.
Oh, no.
Oh, my gosh. This thing was so close. And I still remember it because I saw it so perfectly, too.
Yeah, good.
So I got 2 steps off the line, read the throw from the second baseman. It's nice. So, I get into my actual set position, not a standing set, but I actually get set for this. And I'm like, okay, just make sure you're watching that foot hit the base and listen for the sound of that glove and don't mess that up. And so, that foot comes in. He was probably within a 1/4 inch of that bag, and I am not kidding. He got down that line that fast, or the second baseman threw the ball that slow. I don't know which. Maybe both.
Yeah.
But he was a 1/4 inch from that bag, and I heard the snap of the glove, and I banged him out so quickly. The timing was ridiculous. It was probably like, snap the glove, out! And I was like, oh, geez, that was fast, but at least it's out of the way.
Do you remember what kind of feedback or comments you got after the game, either from Drew, or did any of the players or coaches interact with you afterwards in any way?
After the game, I talked with one of the coaches, and he just told me the same thing Drew was telling me all day long. Like, hey, relax. We're just having fun out here. It's not that serious. You're okay. Pretty much is what it broke down to. He's like, you did a great job out there. You didn't mess up any calls. So, you have nothing to worry about. And Drew was kind of preaching the same thing. He was like, just relax, slow your timing down. You're just fast right now because your, adrenaline's pumping. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So after a few more spring games, that would eventually calm down. But first one, you're going to be going for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember going back into the locker room after that game and just dressing out. And I finally felt the adrenaline rush really hit me. Because while I was on the field, I was just like, I was pumped. I'm like, okay, let's go. And I got back there and I'm like, wow, that just happened.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was in awe. I had a Little League game later that night too. It was a 5:30 Little League game. And I was working that, and I was still just floating in my shoes that entire game.
Oh,
I mean, I was like, okay, this is a lot slower. Yep. No wonder it's one man.
It's a little different game right now.
A little bit. I probably called about 4 or 5 strikes during that game.
Yes, a little bit of a different scenario.
A little bit. So, it was a little tough coming right off a spring training game going to that. But, I mean, it was still fun regardless. I was with some coaches that I really liked out there. And, I mean, just the next probably week or so, I was just living life to the fullest. I was so happy.
Yeah. I've got such a big smile on my face just listening to you tell that whole story. I can picture you out there and just imagine what you might have been feeling and going through, and such a cool experience. And you've had a couple other opportunities, isn't that right, to work some spring training games?
I did. So most of them were backfield games. I started off, it started off with the athletics that was in an inter squad. My next game, it was actually the first plate that I ever got to work for spring training.
Aha.
So again, I was a nervous wreck for that one too.
Yeah. How did it go?
Oh, it went amazing. I mean, I just felt, solid that game. I'm not going to say I called everything perfectly. I'm sure I didn't. It was my first pro plate, but I felt really good about my performance that day.
Good.
I really did. And so, I'm nervous as heck. First pitch comes in, that one gets, it was hit to right field for a fly out, but I saw that first pitch and I'm like, okay, I'm good. I can handle this. It was just that first pitch that I needed to see.
That's all it took, huh?
That's all it took. It's
good.
Coming in so much straighter than anything you've seen. So it honestly, I think the faster the ball, the cleaner the look at the plays. Truly.
I've heard that from other pro guys too.
Yeah. I mean, it's honest to God, like you see those fastballs coming in and it's not these, looping 30-mile-an-hour fastballs that you're seeing from 12-year-olds out on, the Little League fields. It's 90 plus coming in. And you're like, okay, I'm actually seeing this. I never thought that I would see it that well. I was thinking, okay, 90 miles an hour, that's going to be a blur going right by me. But you actually track it really well.
So how did you find your experience working with those catchers that day then? Do you feel, to what point did those guys make a difference in what your experience was like behind the plate?
That was actually really interesting because outside of professional baseball, youth baseball, catchers don't really say much to you. They don't really want to talk to you. They're nervous, of you. They're a little intimidated by umpires at the youth level. When you get out there, it's just guys having fun playing some baseball. And so the catchers, they were phenomenal with me. We were just, talking the entire game. Just, it's developing that working relationship that you hear from the pros all the time. Just,
It's so cool to think about that, and like you just described the catchers, the relationship you had that day. It's just a bunch of guys out there playing ball. And
yeah,
it kind of always boils down to that, doesn't it? Whether it's your Little League games you're doing or up in the pros doing spring break, beg your pardon, spring training.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're all just kids at heart, really. That's what it is.
Yeah.
We start playing the game. I started playing when I was probably, 3 or 4. And I mean, it stays the same. Obviously it gets more competitive and there are more things that factor into it the older you get, but it always boils down to, we're just, kids trying to have fun. I don't care if you're, a 45-year-old kid. I don't care if you're a 10-year-old kid. We're all kids out there trying to have fun. Truly.
I am guessing pretty confidently that your dad and your mom are just really proud of you and excited for this.
They're really supportive of me. They always have been. They're huge baseball fans. Our family is what got me into baseball when I was really young, and it stays that way. We still have just a love for the game. It doesn't even have to be for a team, just for the game itself. And so, my dad loves coming out to spring training games with me. And he's always been supportive of everything that I do as an umpire. So it's been phenomenal to have them on my side, and especially to have them, on my side when it comes to, I have to get out of school for some of these spring training games to get there on time.
Sure.
And so, they're really supportive. They're like, as long as you get your work done, keep your grades up, we have no issue with it. And luckily my school's the same way. I had to talk to the administration there before we got into this semester just to make sure it wouldn't be an issue. And they said the same thing. We're like, they're willing to work with me. They're willing to give me a few more days off if I need them to go out there because this truly is career development. So that's what I consider it.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's truly what it is. I'm just, working on my craft and trying to get myself ready for the next level. And so as long as I keep my grades up, they have no issue with it, which is amazing.
Man, I tell you, the support of others is your story.
It's truly, that's how all of us should be, I think. I mean,
I agree.
Everyone should be supporting everyone out here. It's a brotherhood. Umpiring is a brotherhood.
Yeah, you've got you started out with your dad. You started out with your folks supporting you along the way. And then you meet Drew, and this guy just decides, I'm gonna take this kid and show him the way. And you've got your school administrators working with you to make sure that you check all the boxes as far as school concerned, but also get to take advantage of all the opportunities that you've been given. And you go to these camps and clinics and get feedback and advice from guys who have been there and done that. And it's just.
That's the only way we can really grow is to, learn from people who have already, gotten to the levels that we're looking to work at, and thank God for the people who led the way on that. For whoever gets there ahead of us, stick to them. You want to learn from them. They have information for you. And honestly, everyone at every level will have something for you, I think.
I totally agree. I recently attended a Little League clinic, just a day. And it was a lot of stuff that I've done a lot of times before and have taught a lot of times before. But this was my one and only opportunity to get a little bit of a tune-up before the Little League season started. And it was a lot of fun. I ran into a lot of guys that I've made friends with over the years. So it's just really a great experience all around. But as far as feedback is concerned, a couple of the instructors there, even though, by this time we're doing basic 6 in our sleep and things of that nature. So one of the little key fine tuning things was the instructors they noticed that my hands were coming a little too close together when calling time or when giving the count. Yeah. I was holding them a little too much in front. I didn't feel like I was blocking my vision or anything, but I was holding them a little too front. They've just got me moving my hands out just a little bit to the sides when indicating the count and when calling time. And that's the kind of just super fine tuning stuff that you get if you're receptive to hear it.
Exactly. And that's a big thing, is being receptive to hear it. You got to be teachable.
Yeah.
You just got to be open-minded to everything. Everyone has something to say, and you might as well hear them out.
Yeah.
It's not going to do you any harm to hear someone out. Even if you don't necessarily agree with what they're telling you, that's fine. Maybe you don't have to implement it, but you should still, at least listen and see if they have, something for you that could really benefit you. Because more often than not, someone's going to have something for you that's really going to help you on the field.
Absolutely. So tell me about your goals. Where do you think you would like to be 3 years from now, and what kinds of opportunities are you having at that time?
About 3 years from now, obviously, I want to be in, professional affiliated baseball, so minor league ball. In about 3 years, I'm really hoping that I could be right around, let's say, A advanced. I'm probably shooting a little high on that, but I'm hoping for, if I work hard enough, I'm hoping I can get to A advanced within 3 years.
Good, lofty goals. That's good.
Probably a little too high, but the higher you set them,
For sure.
I don't see a problem with that. I truly don't see a problem with setting goals too high.
Absolutely.
Because I'm just going to be working my butt off to, get there.
And it is your plan to get to umpire school at some point in these next 3 years, yes?
Yeah, so I'm hoping to go next January. So in January of 21, I'll be going to umpire school. I'm still kind of keeping to myself which one I'm leaning towards. Because truly it won't matter. I'm going to get great instruction at either school that I go to.
Yes.
It's what I'm actually looking for is not only instructors. I'm looking at, other people that might be going to those schools that I might know, because it could be helpful to have a familiar face, someone that I know I could go, study with, get into the rule book immediately afterwards. We can have good conversations about rules and how we interpret them. So I'm going to, touch base with a couple of different guys that I know are going to school, see what they're thinking. And I know I'll make quite a few decent friends at umpire school, but if you go in with one or two guys, I'm sure that's going to be a great help too.
Sure, that wouldn't hurt at all.
It can't hurt. Exactly. That's how I see it. It can't hurt.
Well, we're starting to wrap this up here, David, and it's been awesome talking to you. I just want to ask, when you think about inspiration on the field, when you think about what fills your tank, and when you think about what your true role is out on the field, I'm just wondering, what does that mean to you? Where do you find the motivation besides just getting the call right or knowing the correct rule?
It's honestly, this is probably going to be a very simple answer, but it's just being in the game. I love being a part of it. Something special happens every single time we're out on a field. No two games are exactly alike, and that's what I love. There's something new every single day. And I mean, especially when you start working in leagues where you're seeing guys regularly, you really do develop relationships with these people, whether they're, coaches or players. The relationships you have and the camaraderie out there is absolutely amazing.
I totally agree. And there's nothing simple about that answer. That's where it's at. That's where it's at. It's the love of the game. It's the love of being out there, whether it's a Indians inter-squad game or your very first Little League game, man. You started out with the love, and all it does is build and build and build.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, David, hey, man, this has been awesome, and I'm so glad that you made the time to come on with me, and you have so much to be looking forward to and so much to be excited about, and I'm really proud of you. I know your dad and your mom and everybody that you've worked with, Drew, the guys that have brought you up. Man, can't wait to see where you go with this, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. It's truly been it's such an amazing experience to be on here just talking with you. We don't get to talk baseball a whole lot when we're outside of, our locker room. So right. It's just a great experience for me. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate you, man. Hey, have fun out there. We'll talk soon, okay?
Will do.
Well, there you have it. Is that kid put together or what? And don't you wish you were in David's spot when you were 17 years old? I have no doubt that he has a very bright future ahead of him, and I won't be surprised in the least in 8, 9, 10 years to see him on a Major League ball field. I promised you an update on David's situation and his plans for this summer. David's going to graduate high school in May, and he has a job offer in place to go work in the Northwoods League, a collegiate league in the upper Midwest. And following that, if things go well, he's also been in contact with representatives from the American Association Independent Pro League to go work for them. And that sounds like about the best kickstart he can get to a long career in professional umpiring. Once again, my sincere thanks for listening today. Take very good care of yourselves and your families. Have a good week, and I will see you next week on the Umpire Inspire podcast.